for this discussion. I'll be quick with my assignment. Let me just bring us up to date with the latest news headlines from across the continent of Africa. We start with those from Kenya. The Daily Nation, why Ruto read the Riot Act. That is the main headline. What's wrong with CBC? Submit your views here. And then iconic Hilton Hotel to shut before Christmas. The Standard newspaper, Ruto to raid your pocket for savings, and that is the headline. And President's warning shot to the new cabinet. And then, okay, so the Star newspaper probe on a killer squad could suck in top cops. That is the headline there. And Ruto wants new CSAs as fresh cabinet takes over. So that is what we have and some of the newspapers here in Kenya. Let's look at a few of them from across the continent of Africa this morning. And we start with The Guardian from Nigeria. Arrest of suspects, UK's updated advisory heighten fears in Abuja. And The Nation from Nigeria as well. Terror alert, parties in a fix over call to halt campaigns. And then Chamisa flags rights abuses. That is from Newsday in Zimbabwe. And Daily News, joy as Zimbabwe stand hulking Pakistan. And the Daily News, joy as apologize for that, Doc. We truly apologize for that. Okay. All right. The Daily News from Zimbabwe, Joy Azim, Stan Hawking, Pakistan. And the New Vision from Uganda, Ebola, government gives schools tough rules. Daily Monitor also from Uganda, Museveni stops MP secret pay raise plan. And the Daily Telegraph from the UK, Prime Minister plans to expand windfall tax grab. And the Guardian also from the UK, no way back. Business Day from Kenya, what the Treasury, no, from South Africa, what the Treasury wants from ESCOM, and the Sowetan also from South Africa, and the show goes on. So that is what we have in some of the newspapers from across the continent of Africa this morning. Back to you, Doc. Back to you. All right, so as we wait for a doctor to come on and guide us through this conversation this morning, and as we wait for the rest to join us today, just maybe a quick introduction on the topic that we're looking at. Is Africa prepared for the world economic meltdown? Because according to the United Nations, which sounded off a warning that the world is on the edge of a recession, and developing nations such in those in Asia and in Africa could bear the brunt of it. Monetary and fiscal policies in advanced economies, including continued interest rate hikes, could push the world towards a global recession and stagnation. And also economic development in Africa. Report 2022 shows that neglecting the potentially transformative role of high knowledge intensive services such as information and communications technology services and financial services is among the key reasons why we are having some of the problems you're having here in the continent. And Africa is among the least diversified regions in the world with regards to exports. So with everything that is going on in the world, the recent pandemic that we're just reeling from, and also other factors, it appears it's not just a problem for Africa, but this is a global problem. But maybe other countries have been able to cushion their people. I don't know how well we are doing here in the continent as far as that is concerned, and that is the conversation we shall be having this morning. Doc, if you can hear me, are you there? Very well. I think I'd like to bring in anybody who.
I hear you very well.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you those who want to speak about the subject, we can start. Africa, is it prepared? Is Africa really prepared for the meltdown? Medium has given us just a preview of what we prepared. You saw Corona virus just got us by surprise. And the coronavirus devastated most parts of Africa. We didn't have even a hospital already equipped with the equipment that was in Europe to save lives. What about the economic meltdown? Why is it that Africa always is found at crossroads with very many other things? This is a preparation that we are looking at. This is something that we want to discuss. This is something that we want to talk over and over and see how best we can make our Africa prepared. Are there emergencies that we overlook? Look at the floods in Nigeria. They came and swept the people. They killed the people. And all what the president of Nigeria is saying is helpless. He doesn't know what to do. So anybody who would like to make a contribution on this one, you are welcome. If you want to say something, just put up your hand. I thank all of you. I can see Honorable Member of Parliament from Zimbabwe. Thank you very much. I can see Daud. I can see Honorable Member of Parliament. You have requested to speak. Brighton, thank you very much. You are added. I can see another request. Well, that request was gone. Let's come and see. Tendai says on the chat, we are not prepared at all. So come in and tell us more. Is Africa prepared? Is Africa prepared? Honorable Member of Parliament Brighton from Zimbabwe. Is Zimbabwe prepared for this economic meltdown? Anyway, given that you people have been on the meltdown throughout, tell us more. This is more. Are you turning to China for trade, India for trade, Russia for trade? Isn't this going to create more complications for the people of Zimbabwe? Brighton, you can speak now. Honorable Brighton from Zimbabwe, you have the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's quite commendable to have such discussions on such space. I think, particularly on Zimbabwe, I think we must have a change of mindset in terms of politics. We can't continue having politics throughout the year or throughout the term. People should invest more in infrastructure, number one. Climate change, number two. Proper investments within the continent is it's a requirement also. I think that's my contribution for start. I will request a mic again. Did you hear my contribution?
I did hear your contribution. Thank you very much, Honorable Member of Parliament. Thank you very much. We concentrate much on politics, and we are doing a lot of politics other than from the day the election ends. Miriam, is this the same problem that you have in Kenya, where you are right now? Do we start politics too early? Because the Brighton from Zimbabwe says they have been doing politics since 2018, when they last had an election. What is your view? What is the view of anybody on the platform? Is it politics that is making us not prepared? Do we spend much time on politics, campaigns, elections, and we forget to prepare for our people? Are we trying to grab power? Brighton, if you could Mike, mute your mic, please.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Are we are we are we are we too much talking about politics? We talk about elections. We forget that there is a nation to build. We are not building a nation, Miriam. We are simply talking about what else, who can become the MP, who can become the minister in all countries in Africa. As soon as the election, look, Uganda election was in 2021, but still the losers are still mourning up to today. Do we waste much of the time? Why can't we change our behavior towards in preparation? Then earthquake. Look at the elections in Nigeria. People are more concentrated on elections than looking for the blocked, some of the things that are blocked, pipes that take the water in Atlantic Ocean. You can see when the floods came, they killed everybody. We have cut down this, killed most of the people. And we are here, the president of Nigeria is coming on TV telling us we are sorry, people have died, message of condolence. When are we going to be prepared to help our people? Are we prepared? Is Africa prepared? What about the economy, the power chain? You know, the chain of supply chain. We are looking at the lines of supply chain from Russia, Ukraine, Europe. Are these supply chains not going to disappear? What shall we do when they come for us? So let's discuss there. I don't know whether people are fearing to talk about. Muruti, can you try this topic? Given that there is a war in your country, Mr. Muruti, there is a war in your country, and Mr. Maxon, you said there was. I can see my friend still somebody. Ishasha. Uh, if anybody can come up to speak, anybody coming up to speak, Medium, give us some more details that you see. The GDP. The World Bank says the GDP it is putting at 3.2, that it is the effects already, the fluctuation of the dollar, the currencies could bring about upheaval similar to that of Sri Lanka. Do you agree with that?
I think that as we were looking at that short video that we watched yesterday when we were having this conversation, almost a similar conversation, it's I don't know which currency is not doing very well, because we know the Sri Lanka one and even the ones here in the continent, we are not faring well as far as the global market is concerned. That means if you're going to buy things from outside the continent, and then it is costing more, and not just that, because of other factors like the increase in oil prices, and so that means everything has to go up. So that has really affected even our own currency here. But perhaps I'll just go back to a question that you had posed earlier about the nature of our politics in this continent. We saw, even for us here in Kenya, since the last elections we had in 2017, Kenyans were never given a break. We were treated to politics every single day. The politician, the political class, continued engaging us in unnecessary politics until, again, we just had our elections, a couple of months ago in August. So unfortunately, this happens at the expense of the development agenda in the country. Good for us, President Uhuru Kenyatta really focused on delivering on his manifesto. So regardless of the atmosphere that he was operating on at that time, he was able to be steadfast, and he focused on the agendas and the things that he was set to deliver to Kenyans. And I think every Kenyan right now can actually see. I don't know if there's any any part of this country you can go and not feel the footprints of what the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta did. It's all over in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the healthcare, in terms of every other thing that is important to the person, to the everyday person here in the country. This agenda is felt all over the country. And I think he was able to just close his ears and just focus on that. But otherwise, there are areas which would have required everybody to come and just be on board. But unfortunately, because of the politics, that suffers. And that is the situation in so many of our countries in Africa. And unfortunately, opposition sometimes, their job is just to criticize the government, very vindictive, but they never offer alternative as far as some of the solutions to the problems that we're looking at is concerned. So it's just a vicious cycle that continues to deny the people in this continent a right to be served properly as far as our government is concerned, because we politic on everything. Everything and everything has become very politicized, so you don't even know where to draw the line. Unfortunately, we suffer because that comes at the expense of development agenda to the people. So that's just what I observe, and I observe across the continent. Yeah, like right now, Nigeria, like you say, Doc, people are dying. The flooding there is really out of order, insecurity, and other things that you've been grappling with. But who is talking? They're just concerned about who is going to be president in February, because they're headed for the elections, and the things that they're supposed to be addressing and giving their voice to. Nobody seems to care so much. And of course, the solutions that have been proposed, they are quite knee-jerk. They really cannot offer a long-term, a solution to some of these things. So politics, I guess, is our biggest enemy in this continent as far as development is concerned, and as far as cushioning our people is concerned.
Thank you very much, Miriam, for that presentation. Thank you again. You have raised a number of issues on countries in Africa, especially countries that are now lining up for elections from 2024, 2023, 2024. We have Nigeria, we have Zimbabwe, we have there are several countries around there. We have a crisis in Chad, we have a crisis in Ethiopia of the today, yesterday, or Ethiopian troops bombed Oromo. This crisis, we have a war, ongoing war in Libya. There are so many trouble spots on the continent of Africa that are making it very, very difficult for us to concentrate on the coming economic meltdown of Russia, Ukraine chaos. Because this chaos of Russia, Ukraine is not going to end today. It's not going to be stopped tomorrow. Even if it ends, what are the ripple effects for the African people? What will happen to Africa? How shall we resolve some of the issues? Are we too much preoccupied on elections? It looks like Africa spends most of the time and money on elections than spending time and money to rebuild the roads, hospitals, to change, to diversify crops, change the models of agriculture, change the models of tourism, bring in new things in Africa. Do we spend much time talking about democracy? And do we eat democracy? Surely one president of Africa asked, do you eat democracy? How many of you on this platform eat democracy? Yes, we eat democracy in format that we are speaking where we should have not spoken. That is democracy. But democracy without a coin in the pocket, how will you buy the food? How will you purchase the economic policies that Africa brings? The economic policies that we see on the continent of Africa. Some people bring serious economic policies. Thomas Sankara brought the policy of barter trade. It didn't go down very well. The French were very rattled and they killed him. He went down with bullets. In Chad, we see a problem, a fight between the Chad two brothers of Idris Habre or Idris Dabi, not Habre. Idris Dabi, they are fighting over power. In Ethiopia, we see Tigray against Addis Ababa. We have a problem there. Are we resolving these more problems than resolving economic meltdown? Yet the World Bank is telling us you are on your own. Things are coming that you cannot run away from. Let me hear from Maxan from Somaliland in Hegesia. Maxa, take the platform. The mic, please. Mr. Maxamud from Somaliland, you have the mic. Okay, in that case, let's move on and find out what can Africa now prepare itself for. Do we begin now to activate? Is it too late to start getting our farms ready? Have we got our equipment? Have we got our fertilizers? The prices of fertilizers, which is a chain supply, the fertilizers are going up. Is Africa prepared to buy a high-priced fertilizer for their products? How many governments are doing this before it runs out? It even annoyed me more when I heard of all African governments saying they have looked for masks during the COVID. People looked for masks. They said the masks are finished. We can't import masks. Surely you cannot make your own masks. In Africa, we can't make our own masks. What is the problem of this continent called Africa? That is at the center of it. And Miriam, believe me or not, this meltdown and the people on the platform, those listening, if these wars are not removed, if these wars are not stopped, if these conflicts are not stopped, as the conflict in Russia, Ukraine goes on, builds up, we might have a very different situation across the bridge, which is Africa. Miriam.
All right. Yes, indeed. We have today's the rest of the panelists. They're not willing to join the conversation. They're just listening. You're welcome to give your opinion on the matter that we're discussing. I think it's very important to hear a varied of opinions so that our conversation can be enriched for the sake of the people who are listening and for the sake of also offering alternative solutions that who knows, someone might pick up as we are all facing these tough times together, not just in Africa, but indeed across the world. Perhaps some of the solutions that our leadership can.
Medium,
Mhm,
before you come to solutions,
mhm.
let me expand more so that you get the gravy, then you come down to summarize, because it looks like our guests are listening more than participating. So let me come to some of the difficulties of Africa being prepared. There is likelihood of inflation rates, inflation on African continent, our currencies losing value. When our currencies lose value, we must be prepared for more tougher conditions, austerity measures, to cut down on payments for civil service. How many African countries are cutting down on civil service, the ballooning wage bill, which we see on African continent? That's one. Inflation, mark that, write down that one. Inflation is causing a problem. Inflation will be high. The meltdown will come with inflation. Our rates our dollar, no, our currencies, all of them will be devalued. Devaluing our currencies creates a very big risk of sparking uprisings. That's one. Second point that we might have in the meltdown is security threat. Security threat, like we said yesterday, Miriam, we have a security threat all over Africa now. Look in the Sahel region, in Chad, in Ethiopia, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in every part of Africa, there is a security threat. There is someone saying, I am not happy with your government. There's someone saying, I am going to overthrow a government. There's someone saying, soldiers are coming. How prepared are we if there is an economic meltdown? How many of these security threats? Also in the security threats, Medium, you have under the panel and those listening, you have a terrorist moving from one area to another one because of the economic outlook. Terrorists tend to move to different areas of operation. It becomes a security risk for security chiefs of every various country on the continent of Africa to manage terrorism, to manage radicalization of youth, recruitment into dubious activities. Human trafficking comes with the economic meltdown. If people don't have money, they will tend to sell every commodity that comes across near them. They will even sell human beings. So, Miriam, that is an effect that Africa must always be prepared for. People will sell everything. They will even sell a human being. So human trafficking. Of late, I'm hearing there is a number of so many children on the streets of some cities in Africa, especially in the evenings. I'm told in Nairobi, when you drive, when I was there, when you drive in Nairobi in the evenings, you drive at night, you see so many younger people crowding back in the streets. Where are they coming from? During that time, do they go to school? Where do they go? They are like the Indian Ocean. It goes away, then later on comes. I don't know how many people have asked where the Indian Ocean goes. I don't know. Miriam is maybe an expert on that one to tell us where the Indian Ocean. Has anybody on this platform found out where this ocean always goes? Where does it go? It is like the children that are street children that in Kampala. Very many of them have come all the way from Karamoja. We have street children in Nairobi who have come all the way. They are in Nairobi City, in Dar es Salaam, in Harare, in all parts, in South Africa. The security threat. South Africa was one of the countries that we never expected somebody to say there will be a bomb in the sandy town. Therefore, don't go there. The Americans yesterday gave us a warning that we should not go near Sandtown of South Africa, Sandton, because there will be a terrorist might attack that area. These are the obstacles that are coming together. And let's be honest, these are obstacles coming together with the economic meltdown that we are looking at. My brother Richard Adede from Kampala will tell me that with the current, I can see you on the platform, with the current situation that we have, Richard Adede, there are bound to be so many governments could start recriminating on people because people will come to the streets. You're a human rights activist. Don't you see the danger of an economic meltdown? That when there are no goods, what will the people say? People have not eaten. A security threat, therefore, can come in terms of food insecurity. If there's not enough food, the supply chain is cut off. No wheat, no fertilizers, no gas. Let's look at the place where these things used to come from. I was glad to hear that countries in Africa are saying this gas, we have the gas, we shall export to Europe. But do we have the infrastructure to export this gas to Europe? The answer is no. We don't have even a dam infrastructure. We don't have an infrastructure that can send gas that can be used in houses in Britain. Another point, Miriam, that under the panel, those who are here listening, is the question of regime change. The meltdown comes with regime change. The difficulties of regime change. Are we witnessing a regime change or regime changes? We know we have a common enemy in the world called George Soros. George Soros pays people to overthrow governments in Africa. Isn't it this the time that George Soros will pay more governments, will pay more people of opposition to create demonstrations and create havoc and chaos on the streets of Africa? Look at that point. Another point that you must look at when you are looking at regime change, also look at human rights. Where are human rights observed in Africa? People in Tigray, Oromo, have been dying for a long time, but nobody is talking about it. All what we have been told is that there is Ukraine, 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 Ukraine. So if you tell me Ukraine, Ukraine, and the Ukraine, what about us? What about us? What about Africa? Why haven't we resolved the conflict in Libya that has killed thousands and thousands of people? Why have we not resolved that? Why have we not resolved the conflict in Mogadishu since 1991? The last point that you should mark on these ones, as we bring in our views, as we wait for somebody to come out that he wants to speak. Most people want to listen. Is political fragility. Yes, a political fragility. If you want to speak, you raise up your hand and we shall bring you up. Political fragility. A political fragile state is going to exist in Africa if we are not prepared for an economic meltdown that is coming as a result of the war in Europe and the cut of supply chains, routes, supply chains of goods, of communication, of banking. We might have very serious problems coming in that department. So therefore, these are the most outshining that I could call that can be seen as factors in the economic meltdown that Africa expects. Inflation, security threats, regime change, and the political fragility. Are we ready? Are we ready to watch our continent go down? Are we ready to tell our governments? Are we ready to listen to our governments? The situation looks beyond our control. What does Africa do? That is my question today. Miriam, back to you, and maybe bring in other people. I don't know whether Muriti is ready. I don't know whether Richard is ready to speak. I don't know. People seem to be listening more than speaking today. I don't know, rising sun. The rising sun must be coming from from Biafra, of course. It is only Biafra where there is a rising sun. Thank you very much for joining us today. My brother, stay with us and always continue. Vive, thank you very much for joining us again. Stay with us. Follow each other on this platform every time so that when there is any new topic every Friday, we can come with it. Miriam, what interested you most in Africa this week, which we can bring? What interested you in Africa? You can look at it. One of,
Okay.
don't forget, our unaffiliated news as we talk and we wait for some people to come in. What interested you in Africa most?
I think what really the development that we see with the mediation process, led by the chief mediator Olusegun Obasanjo, former president of Nigeria, and of course Kenya's president, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and former vice president of South Africa, among other people who have joined the mediation process between Ethiopia and the TPLF and other groups there in Ethiopia. I think that was a good development because remember the last time that this mediation process was set to take off, it did not for several factors, but it appears AU seemed to have been prepared this time round, and so everybody gathered. Everybody, I hope everyone that is supposed to be there is there, and the mediation kicked off on Monday, and they should be ending on Sunday. They did not say they've not been giving any updates on the proceedings of the mediation. I think sometimes it's good to just keep things under wrap, but hopefully everybody's doing their part. So on Sunday, they should not surprise us with some things, perhaps that were said, or some people and the headlining, headliners. They're always headliners and people who are just difficult to agree on certain things. But I think it is a very important step, and hopefully we can finally get a solution to what is going on in Ethiopia. But what worried me is that on one side they've come together and they're seated on the table and they are speaking about mediation. But on the other side, the cessation of hostilities has not stopped, has not been effected. And that region continues to be bombarded by the Ethiopian government and the Eritrean soldiers on the other side. So, how do you sit down on one side? You're talking about finding peace, and on the other side, you're still engaging actively on war crimes. That is the part that really confuses me. If you want to really find peace, then you have to come and you have to make conditions necessary, for peace to prevail. Otherwise, I don't see how this will work. But we can only hope that. Things after the mediation process ends on Sunday, something positive will come out of it, and Ethiopians can see how now to rebuild and to reconcile and to just forge forward for the sake of that great country. But cessation of hostilities must stop. Must stop. I think that is the most first and important thing that must happen. Unfortunately, that is still continuing. And Amnesty International released a report and has called for a probe into abuses in the Ethiopian Tigray conflict, saying every party involved in the war in northern Tigray has committed crimes against humanity. An Amnesty International specialist in Ethiopian Eritrea told a press conference in Nairobi on Wednesday that first home peace talks between the warring sides in the brutal two-year conflict in Ethiopia had entered, of course, now we are in day 5, I believe. But they're saying the level of atrocities that have committed in this area, it's out of this world. So a genocide seems to be happening under our own noses here, and the rest of us are just acting as if that is a problem for Ethiopia. We need to speak up and we need to demand for accountability, even as we join through the efforts of those people who are trying to work and bring peace and stability in that country. So that is what really stood out for me this week, and I'm just waiting for Sunday for the report that will come from that mediation team in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Miriam. That is very good. And I want to be candid and read. There is a man here on the platform by the name MA. And I want I want Mr. Muruti to answer this. I think it is better if you know the context of Ethiopia. Who is dying in Ethiopia? By whom? There are two terrorist groups in Ethiopia, Oromo Liberation Army and the TPLF. They are killing all Ethiopians and specifically the Amharas. So why are you mostly shouting of Tigray and Oromo? Mr. Tigray, uh, Mr. Muriti, this question is yours. I think I can't answer much when you yourself from Oromo are present here. And Mr. M.A. is a listener. She's also there. So can you upgrade you to a debate? Because the debate is the melting down of an economic nature. But it looks we cannot solve it, Miriam, without talking about the conflicts. So I want Mr. Muruti to talk about this right now. Muruti, the microphone is yours, and we let's listen to your views. You are from Oromo yourself, and you are from Ethiopia. We don't want to answer much for you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Dr. Masanga and Miriam. It's a pleasure to be here. We really appreciate that you are holding space for us to discuss the issues that matters to us all Africans. Uh, at this point, it's a bit tricky to say about the peace talk that's going on in South Africa. Uh, we can still touch on that and the conflict in Ethiopia, but as Dr. Masanga said, even though the crisis in Africa, particularly in the areas where it is getting worse in Ethiopia, in DRC, Burundi, and the other areas where the conflict is raging within Africa, is related to some kind of economic aspects. I would want us to focus on the topic for me. Is Africa prepared for the world economic meltdown? This is a very important and timely and critical question that we all need to ask ourselves, that the African governments ask themselves. So what part can we play? What role can we play, to avert the seemingly economic meltdown coming to global level? But as Africa, is Africans prepared? I don't know. I'm not sure about this, but we must be prepared. I know for sure that we must be prepared for the world economic meltdown. It's not anymore about if the economic meltdown or the recession is going to happen, but it is when it's going to happen. It's kind of an imminent, according to the informations or news that we are reading. The economic meltdown, the world economic meltdown, is kind of an imminent. So it is about when. It's not about if. So are we prepared? Let us challenge ourselves with this question. On top of the economic meltdown or economic crisis that is going to face the world, the natural disaster that Africa is facing. For example, myself, I am in Kenya, and I understand what is happening in the northern part of Kenya. Almost, I think Miriam knows this very well. The drought that is causing, a serious crisis, alarming crisis, is affecting almost 9 counties in Kenya, and also in the Horn of Africa, in Ethiopia, and Somalia. All these Horn of Africa is affected by drought. That is now a natural, disaster. So on top of the world economic meltdown because of the war in Ukraine and Russia and other parts of the world, that one way or the other there is a, a quiet war is going on almost in every corner of the world, because everybody is waiting for an opportunity. Like, for example, China and Taiwan, they are also on the verge of war. um, the other parts of world is also having some kind of that challenge, that anytime anything can happen. This is a concept that I have, because in this world at any time anything can happen. It could be even a nuclear war can take place in this world. So are we generally prepared for a catastrophic kind of event that is to hit humanity? So beyond even economic meltdown, what about the perceived? We are not sure of it, but it could be possible, according to some analysis, that because of the Ukraine war and because of the war in Ukraine and Russia, a nuclear exchange might start to take place in this world. And then what happens? Are we even prepared for third world war? So all this must be, the topic of the day for us to prepare ourselves as Africans. So I really appreciate Dr. Masanga for you to bring up such a very important topic for Africans to discuss and find ways, to prevent some kind of crisis that is related to or to the topic. But when it comes to Ethiopia, for Ethiopia, as you mentioned earlier, because of the conflict now, and on top of the conflict, the war, the drought, and the people are starving in millions. There is an urgent need for humanitarian assistance. People are dying every single day of hunger and the starvation. And on top of this, the conflict, the crisis, political crisis, government crisis, leadership crisis, all this is factors for us to worry, or for us personally, as I'm affected by what's happening in Ethiopia, because I have been part of that country, even though now I'm not in Ethiopia, but I'm just near. My people, the Oromo people, are fighting for self-determination to get, proper government, regional government, a government that people have elected. According to the Ethiopian crisis, we have talked about this several times before. The Tigray conflict and the Oromia conflict is not different from the general conflict within Ethiopia, because Ethiopia is going through civil war. Ethiopia is going through serious crisis, a crisis that were covered up for very long, undercover, but now it is boiling up. You will find a peace only, we said this, you will find a peace in Ethiopia only if all the warring parties, just as Dr. Masanga mentioned, Oromo Liberation Army, TPLF, Benishangul, there are other grieved, regions like Afar, Amara. All these parties, if they come together and discuss and negotiate a political settlement, that's the only way to bring peace to Ethiopia. It's not only talking about the north, the Tigray region, because the whole Ethiopia is sitting on a time bomb, a crisis that will maybe even take years to solve if it is not averted early. So when I add this salt into the spices that we are talking about, then you guys, Africans, you must worry for us more than for yourselves, because in Ethiopia every single day people are perishing for lack of food, because lack of medicine, because of bullets, because of war. Every single day Ethiopia is a population of 100 and approximately 20 million, 120 million people. So far, I think I can guess almost million people have perished by now. You don't believe it? Then you will one day you will find this statement true. It is already said, half a million people only around Tigray region have perished. But we know in Oromia region, war has been raging for 3 years, more than 3 years, even before Tigray war started. It started in Oromia region. Getachew Reda, the high command of Tigray region, also mentioned what I've just said. The war started in Oromia first, and then it came to Tigray region, because Oromia region is the largest region, the region which resisted the Abiy government from the word go, because he played a mischievous ways to come to power. And then he started downgrading the revolution that was that brought change to the Ethiopian, that brought change to Ethiopia itself. It is the Oromo people. It is a revolution. It was the protest in Oromia that forced former prime minister to resign, and then Abiy came to power. Abiy was part of the former government. He was a guy who was working as a spy. He was also working in IMSA. I mean, in the security sector. At some point he was even served as colonel in the war between Ethiopia and Eritrea. He was